Hi everyone, my name is Steph, this is the Novelty Corner and welcome back to my channel. Today I have a Books Beside My Bed video for you where I wrap up the last 7 days worth of reading. This is also birthday weekend and I am currently racing the sun rising over the building next door. So I apologise in advance for the light balance and for whatever the hell my hair is doing today because it does not want to behave. Like it never wants to behave, but today it's even worse. Today I'm going to talk about the books I read between the 9th and the 15th of September, and I read... what was it? 7 things this week. And we are slightly heavier on middle grade titles this week just because that's what I was gravitating towards, was the last week of school. I was alternately full of energy because we've finally got sunlight for multiple days in a row, and also extremely tired because it was the end of term. So I gravitated towards things that I was either super interested in or things that I knew would be quick and easy reads, and I may have neglected my TBR game. So I'm not going to be doing any more rolls at the end of today's video just because I really didn't hit any of them. So that's a fib. I did get at least one book from my TBR game list. So yeah, we're gonna pause just for this week. All right, so I read 2 middle grade titles. The first one is The Deadly Daylight by Harrier. This is book 1 in the Alice England mystery series. This is, I'm pretty sure, an Australian author. This was a book I was not expecting to read. I'm actually planning on reading the second book in a series for a kids reading prize that I'm trying to read the shortlist for. And I didn't realize it was the second book in a series, so I decided to read the first one. And it's kind of a cool little book. So this is about 12-year-old Alice who lives with her father. Her father owns a funeral home and together they live at the back of the funeral home, and Alice works with her father. And she's a little bit quirky, a little bit strange to other people. She is very serious. She struggles socially, but she loves a good mystery. And when they end up hosting the funeral for a guy called George, who happens to be the uncle of an acquaintance that she has made at school, she is very intrigued by his death because he had a sunlight allergy, and apparently he died from that sunlight allergy, which she finds very strange because he's lived with it his whole life. So why would that be something that would cause his death when he's so cautious about keeping himself safe? This becomes even more paramount because as she gets to know Violet, the new acquaintance slash friend that she makes, Violet also has the same sunlight allergy as her uncle. And so there is a bit of a vested interest in there, as well as making other friends and solving a bit of a mystery that's going on in the town. So this was fun and entertaining, and it reads like you're going to go into a paranormal, but it is definitely not. It's just a fiction mystery story, but I really enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to reading the second book in the series. And then I also read Ming and Flo Fight for the Future by Jackie French. This was one of the book picks from my TBR game. This was to read a book where the main character has a pet. This is an Australian middle grade time slip novel. We have Ming, who lives in the current day, and she's at school in a very boring history lesson. And she poses the question to her teacher, what about the girls who changed history? And of course she gets a really terrible answer from her teacher. And she ends up being sent back in time by her story, who is the sister of history. Ming is a little bit cheeky in the way that she ends up going back in time, but she ends up inhabiting the body of Flo, who is a Chinese Australian living in 1898, I think. Yes, 1898, on a farm. And she learns really quickly that it was a tough life to be a farmer in 1898 in Australia. And then tragedy strikes and she ends up needing to enlist the help of Flo's Aunt McTavish, who is a wealthy independent woman who is fighting for women's rights. As far as I'm aware, there are 2 or 3 books in this series so far. Jackie French is a very, very prolific, very famous, very popular author here in Australia. She writes children's picture books, middle grade titles, young adult, all the way up to adult titles, so she's prolific. And this series is following Ming as she travels through time to learn about girls in particular, not necessarily women, but girls who have some influence over history. And it's about the small moments and the small things that girls do that change history. And I think that's a really cool concept. So I will probably try and find copies of the other books. I'll probably try and get them out of the library. But yes, really enjoyed this one. All right, I also read Deal with the Demon by Amy Wright. This is another Australian author, and this is a paranormal, I think it might have been roughly novella length. It wasn't super long. This is about Callie, who loses her job and is in desperate need of money and ends up signing up for this app, and she ends up becoming like an escort for monsters. And she is exclusively requested by this one client who on the surface looks very attractive, very conventionally human. She knows obviously that he's probably not, and when they have sex he prefers that she is blindfolded so she can't see what he truly looks like. But of course that doesn't last long, and it turns out he is the sort of stereotypical version of a demon. And Callie was starting to fall for him, but then is obviously confronted by his appearance and needs to figure out whether she can actually move past that. This one does have an obsessive hero. Like, he just wants her, and he is obsessed with her, and he's never really been interested in humans or even in having a sexual partner before, but he wants her. And of course, this is an issue while she's trying to figure out her feelings and her emotions. This was a good first foray into this author. I'm intrigued to read other books by Amy Wright and to see how her writing develops and changes over time. And clearly I have success with books titled Deal with a Demon, because so far I think I'm up to like 3 books that I've enjoyed enough to, want to keep reading books with the same title. Then I also read Cinnamon Roll by Anna Zabo, which is a book that I've had on my Kindle for absolutely ages, but it was recommended to Heather, and I'd mentioned to Heather that I had a copy of it and was planning on reading it, and she said she was interested in my thoughts. And like the little moody mood reader that I am, I decided to read it the next day. So that's what happened with this book, and I absolutely loved it. My comparison for this book is, if you liked For Real by Alexis Hall, I think you might like this book. It's not exactly the same. Again, dynamics are different, but it has that same feel of 2 partners who are engaging in a BDSM kind of relationship where one partner is vastly more experienced than the other. In For Real, it is the submissive who is far more experienced. In this one, it is the dom, but it has that same kind of feeling. It doesn't have the age gap that For Real has, though. So this is an contemporary romance. We have Max, who is a professor of linguistics, and we have Tom, who is a lawyer. Tom has put up an ad in this coffee shop looking for a dominant to work with. So this coffee shop is very queer friendly. It is a shared universe, so a lot of the characters move in and out of particular books with various authors writing them. And Max sees this request on the board, and he thinks about it, and then he's like, yeah, no. We're just gonna see how this plays out, because Tom is asking for trouble. He knows vaguely who Tom is. They're acquaintances, but they're not friends. Anyway, he's working in the coffee shop grading papers and whatnot, and he sees Tom come in, and Tom's basically like interviewing these guys. They are going horribly. All of these guys are absolute assholes. And so eventually Max buys Tom a coffee and they start talking. And Max, who is a sadist, but is also an absolute cinnamon roll hero, decides that he is going to help Tom out, and that he is going to help him learn a little bit more about the culture, because he realizes that Tom has been really badly mistreated and people have taken advantage of the fact that he doesn't really understand or know much about a dominant submissive relationship despite being submissive. And so that's where this starts. And their very first encounter, aside from sort of starting to talk this out, happens to be a demonstration that Max is running on flogging. And his regular demonstration teaching partner can't make it, and Tom offers to step in so that the night doesn't have to get cancelled, because he likes to see these demonstrations that Max puts on. And it is purely a teaching demonstration, but after that one scene, they realise that they really can't hold back any longer, and they go off and they begin to explore what their relationship could look like. So that's a bit of a long-winded explanation, but I really love this book and I want desperately a physical copy of it because it was just great. And Anna Zabo has just a fantastic writing style. Their writing just really appeals to me. They have so many queer characters in their books, and it's casually queer. It's like, no big deal. These people exist and they feel like all of my friends. So I like that and I appreciate that, because it just feels like a very natural real world. The other thing that I didn't realize when I was reading this book, it has a B-League hockey team in it. Max is French Canadian and plays hockey with some of his fellow professors. There is a ton of baking in here. There is that exploration of the dominant submissive relationship as well as S&M. And I just had a really delightful time reading the book. It was great. I also read Worthy, which is the queer anthology, or the queer pride anthology, that I was reading for my members vlog, which is now up. So if you are a Bookish Stars member, you can access this video. And this was a really interesting one because I love reading anthologies, you guys know that. I never go into it expecting to love every single story in here because I know that I won't. And there is a problematic author for me in this anthology, and I did not manage to get through their story. But there were some really cool things in here. And I think if I was going to give it a star rating overall, it's probably like a 3.5 stars, because overall that's where those stories sat. But there were some really great ones in here. Like Hayden Hall, who I think might have been the editor for this, had a story, and it was the Love Triangle Expedition, which was a MMM polyamorous sort of situation, but that's friends to lovers, that I really enjoyed. I enjoyed his writing style and would 100% read more of his writing. So overall it was great because I had read none of these authors, so it was a really great reading experience, and it is just one of the prettiest books that I own. So there's also that. This week I also finished a reread of Power Plays and Straight A's by Eden Finley and Saxon James. This is book 1 in the CU Hockey series. I am listening to them on audio because I can get them through my Audible subscription and I don't have to pay anything for them. So I've finally finished the first book. Like, this book was never my favorite one in the series, to be perfectly honest. It is Foster and Zach's story. Foster is a hockey player. He has a twin brother, and his twin brother's best friend moves to the same college that he is studying at and happens to be his TA. Zach is incredibly socially awkward, and while he is very comfortably gay and out, he is very inexperienced in relationships and is a virgin hero. Meanwhile, Foster is bisexual and out to his friends and his teammates and sort of the people around the college, but it's not, you know, widely publicized that he likes guys as well as girls. But he's kind of seen as the fun-loving guy. He's the team captain. He is desperately trying for the NHL after he finishes his college degree, and the two of them just end up constantly circling one another because Foster's brother Seth has asked him to, you know, keep an eye on Zach, make sure he's okay, and they end up realizing that they have feelings for one another. And I've got to look this up because I haven't looked it up yet. I really like the voice actor for Foster. He was great. He was fantastic at differentiating between characters, but Zach's voice actor just really bothered me in this one. So yeah, that was not my favorite part, but I loved any time Foster had a POV chapter because it was great. And then I got an arc of Clueless Puckboy by Eden Finley and Saxon James. This is the 4th book in the Clueless Puckboys series. Anyway, it's coming out at the end of the month or early October, and this one is about Quinn and Vance. So the thing you have to know about the Clueless Puckboy series, if you're going into these books expecting serious heroes, because this is queer hockey romance, if you're expecting serious heroes who don't behave like 4-year-olds, then this is not the series for you. They are written to be silly, ridiculous heroes, and that is the point of them. So there are a ton of people out there I know that I would never recommend this book to because they don't like those kind of heroes. But we have Quinn, who is just incredibly nervous around his team trainer Vance. Now, Quinn is nursing a groin injury, and at the very start of the book, he ends up making it worse. And so he loses 6 weeks of game playing time. And Vance ends up staying with him for the first few days to help him out because he's not supposed to move around. And both of them are attracted to one another, both of them have crushes on one another, and both of them are so awkward around one another that they don't bring it up because they've also got the added bonus of it being a workplace romance and potentially being a conflict of interest. But eventually they do have very open conversations with the team management and let them know that there is a relationship, and Vance is sort of taken off Quinn's care team. Yeah, it was fun and funny as they were exploring this relationship because Quinn, when he gets flustered, just starts mixing up words and making up words, and it's hilarious because he's just so nervous, and it was kind of adorable. And Vance is desperately trying to find ways to make Quinn feel more comfortable around him. Like, he opens up and talks about himself far sooner than Quinn does, and Quinn is also trying to find something outside of hockey to focus on so that he has a hobby and something that he can spend time and energy on that's not just another person in a relationship. And so Vance is trying to help him find that. And one thing they start settling on is geocaching, which is really cute because it makes for a great date. But anyway, this was fun and enjoyable, and you know, anytime I pick up a Saxon James and Eden Finley book, I know exactly what I'm going to get, and it's fun and lighthearted, and I just have a good time. So those are the books that I have read in the last week. In the comments, I'd love to know if you've read any of them or if you're planning on picking any of them up. Otherwise, feel free to share something that you have been reading and loving this week. If you want to let me know that you're here but you don't leave a comment, feel free to leave some kind of hockey emoji down below. Otherwise, I hope that wherever you're in the world, you're staying safe and healthy, and I will see you in my next video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye everyone.